General business notice of motion for bills number 5. Law Enforcement Powers and Responsibilities Amendment, Sniffer Dogs Repeal of Powers Bill. Introduction.
Thank you. I call the member for Newtown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that a bill be introduced for an act to amend the Law Enforcement Powers and Responsibilities Act 2002 to repeal provisions relating to the use of sniffer dogs in carrying out drug detection and to make consequential amendments to other legislation.
Thank you. The question is that this bill be now introduced. All of the opinions say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
I bring up the bill and move that this bill now be read a second time.
Yep. Let's proceed. Thank you.
In New South Wales, the use of sniffer dogs by police on public transport, at festivals and in bars is not about effective drug control. It is about police intimidation and harassment. In bringing this bill to this place, I am delivering on an election promise made to the people of the electorate of Newtown that if elected, I would introduce a bill into this House to repeal the New South Wales drug dog program. The evidence is in, and it is clear that this program, first introduced under the former Labor government and continued and expanded under this Liberal coalition government, is a failure. As such, this bill seeks to bring an end to wasting public money on an ineffective program that simply does not work and is nothing more than this government, or the government of the day, using the New South Wales police force so that they can look like they are being tough on drugs and law and order. The object of this bill is to amend the Law Enforcement Powers and Responsibilities Act to limit the use of drug detection dogs to those circumstances where police officers have a warrant for their use. It does this by omitting Part 11, Division 2 of that Act, which provides for general powers relating to the use of drug detection dogs. This removes the power to use these dogs on public transport, at festivals and in bars unless a warrant is obtained. A warrant for use of dogs can be still obtained in circumstances where a police officer has reasonable grounds for believing that people in a public place may be committing drug offences and makes an application to an authorised officer for a warrant. The Greens believe that the current broad use of drug detection dogs in places is an infringement on basic civil liberties. We are concerned that the use of police drug dogs is an intimidatory tactic used to discriminate and create fear. We are also concerned that the funding of the drug detection dog program is highly ineffective use of public money, as evidence continues to show that the drug detection dogs do not work. In 2015, the rate of false positives given by dogs averaged at 75%. That means that in 3 out of every 4 cases, the dogs got it wrong, and members of the public were forced to undergo intrusive and humiliating public searches with no drugs found. The most recent expansion of the drug dog program was to allow the dogs to operate on the entire Sydney train network. That expansion has been a clear policy failure, with 4,925 searches conducted between the 1st of January 2014 and the 18th of May 2015, and 3,948 of these, or more than 80%, being false positives. Any other police program that was getting it wrong 75 to 80% of the time would be immediately shut down, and that should be the case with this drug dog detection program. Data obtained by my Greens colleague in the other place, David Shoebridge, makes it clear that the effectiveness of this program and the targeting of the program to certain areas are cause for grave concern. This information was reported in the Huffington Post in November 2015, which read, in 2014, 14,593 searches were conducted after a positive indication from a drug dog. Of those searches, only 3,830 found drugs, meaning that 10,763, or nearly 74%, found no illicit drugs. In the same year, 624 strip searches were conducted after positive indications from a drug dog, with only 233 yielding illicit drugs. That left 391 strip searches, or almost 63%, where no drugs were found. In searches conducted by the Police Transport Command, only 20% of searches found drugs. That is over 10,000 people a year in this state who have had their rights violated and faced unjustified harassment in public spaces within the last year, and nearly 400 people, 391 to be exact, who was subjected to the humiliation and trauma of being strip-searched by police with no justification. We have been contacted by a former festival director of a national Australian music festival about what this looks like in practice. She has had first-hand experience of police drugs at festivals and major music events and has described it in the following way. I was present at every festival, always around the gates before and at opening time, and watched every time with absolute dismay and horror as the police and their dogs intimidated young kids, mostly 18 to 25-year-olds, coming to the festival to have a good time. So many of those kids were strip-searched by the police as a result of sniffing dog, and then they were let go. In 2013, in cases where drugs were found as a result of this program, most were of small amounts for personal use, with only 2.44% of positive searches resulting in a supply conviction. That's 2.44% of positive searches resulting in a supply conviction only. But it is not just the ineffectiveness of this program that is cause for concern. It's also a worrying trend about where most of the searches take place. As was reported in the Sydney Morning Herald in December 2014, again based on data obtained by the Greens, searches are not evenly spread across the city, with people at Redfern train station far more likely to be searched than those at King's Cross or Central stations, even though Redfern searches are less likely to identify drugs. In Redfern, in 2013, there were 1,000 searches conducted at this station. This meant that people were 6.5 times more likely to be searched at Redfern station than they were at Central, even though Redfern station has the highest false positive rate for sniffer dog indications of any local area command. It needs to be asked why. Why have successive New South Wales governments failed to act on unjustified drug searches as a result of sniffer dogs? Given that far fewer than 1% of New South Wales illicit drug users are found with drugs during a drug dog operation, and that in the period from 2007 to 2010, when New South Wales doubled the number of searches, we say an increase in the rate of recent illicit drug use from 12.1% to 13.8%, it is clear that this is about something other than drug detection. It is certainly clear that it is not about harm minimisation, and it is not about catching the big dealers. It also needs to be asked, why Redfern? An area with a long, strong and proud connection with Sydney's Aboriginal community, who have consistently faced the brunt of over-policing and disproportionate law and order agendas. It's also an area with a high proportion of young people and students, and a station used by many who live in nearby public and community housing, all of which are more likely to struggle to find the resources available to fight such harassment, intimidation and fear. It is simply unacceptable, and therefore perhaps unsurprising, though very welcome, that the Redfern Legal Centre has been in contact with our office to express their support for this bill. The ineffective nature of the drug dog program is not new. It is not unknown. Unfortunately, we have seen, though, that successive New South Wales governments have persisted with this program. In 2006, the New South Wales Ombudsman released a review of the Police Powers Drug Detection Dogs Act in 2001 that was first introduced under Labor Government Minister for Police Michael Costa. The subsequent review by the New South Wales Ombudsman recommended decisively for an immediate end to the program. And I quote, "Despite the best efforts of police officers, the use of drug detection dogs has proven to be an ineffective tool for detecting drug dealers. Overwhelmingly, the use of drug detection dogs has led to public searches of individuals in which no drugs were found, or to the detection of mostly young adults in possession of very small amounts of cannabis for personal use. These findings have led us to question whether the Drugs Dog Act will ever provide a fair and effective and cost-effective tool to target drug supply. Given this, we have recommended that the starting point when considering this report is to review whether the Drug Dog Act should be retained at all." Shamefully, despite this unambiguous recommendation from the review in 2006 to end the drug dog program, successive New South Wales governments have continued to waste public money on this. The New South Wales Council for Civil Liberties has expressed serious concerns at this program. They are supportive of this bill and have written to our office to say, The New South Wales Council for Civil Liberties has for years argued that the Drug Detection Dogs program in New South Wales is a costly failure. It targets small users, not the criminal suppliers. The dogs have a high rate of false positive, causing public embarrassment to many. It provokes persons carrying drugs to consume them, sometimes at a risk to their health. It results in few convictions. There is no evidence that it deters drug use. The program continues more for its visibility, police being seen to be doing something, and that is why we support this bill. The impact on people's rights are not just held by civil liberty advocacy organisations. They are felt by individual people in our community every day. One wrote to our office and said, on a practical level, there is empirical evidence that the use of sniffer dogs does not meet its declared objectives and is a waste of public funds and police resources. On a more fundamental level, the use of sniffer dogs and the policing approach, more generally than it signifies, represents an area of irrationality and even insanity in our society that desperately needs changing. We know that guiltless citizens often feel intimidated by such policing, and actually the police force are doing themselves a disservice rather than emphasising community policing as they pay lip service to. They are alienating another generation of youth through such practices. Stories from those subjected to arbitrary searches have also found their way into the media. The Vice magazine, reporting on the use of the drug dog program at Sydney's gay and lesbian Mardi Gras, quoted from one individual who was intimidated by the searches inflicted on them by the New South Wales Police. And I quote from that article. The handler was on the other side of the crowd. He made eye contact with me. I was nowhere near the dog, but as I was walking in and joined the line, he walked through the crowd towards me. He put his hand on my backpack before the dog even indicated, and then sat down. The person who was being searched, Tom, was then led away by police officers to a nearby tent where he was subjected to persistent questioning, had his bag searched, and was then told to take off his clothes and squat before the officers. No drugs were found on him, as he didn't have any. I'm pleased to say that the New South Wales Gay and Lesbian Rights Lobby have also expressed the support for this Greens bill that we are introducing today, because they note the effects that the drug dog program has had on the relationship between the New South Wales Police and the LGBTI community. They write, ensuring that the LGBTI community can maintain confidence in the New South Wales Police requires constant efforts at improving responsiveness, both at an operational level and through reforms to policies and legal frameworks, including an end to the use of the drug detection dogs at events and venues which have shown to be ineffective in policing and harmful to individuals. I have heard countless stories from young people, elderly people, people with disabilities and people from non-English speaking backgrounds about the fear that they have felt when confronted by dark blue overall wearing police with dogs at stations and on our streets. While this has been a long-term position of the Greens to oppose the use of sniffer dogs in our community, it is also something that I have had a direct experience of why this program just does not work. It was the 3rd of July 2008 and I was having a drink with friends at the Bank Hotel in Newtown. I was due to meet my partner a bit later at the Coopers Hotel in King Street. While we were having a drink, a group of police officers with sniffer dogs came into the bar in full uniform. The tension rose, the feeling of threat, fear, guilt, intimidation was palpable within the pub. A short time after the police dogs left the Bank Hotel, I got a call from a friend who was with my partner at the Coopers Hotel. He sounded shaken up and said I should come down to the Coopers Hotel straight away because my partner had been arrested. I left my drink and raced down to King Street to see my friend standing on the footpath and my partner looking pale, in pain and sitting in handcuffs on the ground outside the pub. There were a number of police around, a few of them searching a guy, getting him to drop his jeans in the public space. And at this point, you might think that I'll tell you that my partner had a joint on him or was carrying a few pills. That is not, in fact, the case. All he had in his possession was his New South Wales Law Society solicitor's card. Neither the guy in the pub who was searched nor my partner had any drugs on them. My partner was charged for assisting to attempt the man by offering legal support. He had his rib broken by the police as a result of him offering legal assistance. And in this case, the charges were dismissed by the magistrate, including the requirement for the police to pay legal costs. And we eventually, successfully in a Supreme Court action, found a verdict in favour of my partner and were awarded damages. What has always concerned me about this incident is not everybody who finds themselves under the infliction of this kind of intimidation is a lawyer and has the ability to be able to engage in this fight against this justice. The Greens will continue to stand up in Parliament and work with the supporters in the community to call for the laws that respect our civil liberties and to end programs that are ineffective and aim to harass and intimidate people. Too many people face this intimidation and it must stop. It is entirely reasonable for where the police are able to get a warrant to use drug dog operations when necessary. It is not reasonable for these to be used without warrant and in such failed programs such as the drug dog program. It does not serve our community interest and it does not serve an agenda which we should be seeing a harm minimisation approach to drugs rather than a war on drugs that seeks to intimidate young people and cause fear in our community. I urge those listening to this speech on all sides of this chamber to consider the evidence in relation to this program and to have the courage to speak out. It does not work. It is not just the Greens who are saying this. It is a number of organisations that are saying this. It was the Ombudsman's report in 2006 that said this program does not work. The Greens are committed to ending this ineffective program and call on the Baird government and the Labor opposition to join us in recognising the clear reality that the New South Wales drug dog program does not work. And I call on you all to support this bill and just put an end to it.
Speaker. The question is that this bill be now read a second time. I call the Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I move this debate be now adjourned.
The question is that this debate be now adjourned. All of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes.